There are things that live in the dark, things that don't need to make a sound to terrify you. And for centuries, witnesses across the world have described them the same way. Dark, human-shaped figures that appear at night, stand silently, and vanish before your eyes. They are called shadow people, and if you've ever woken up unable to move, with the feeling that something is watching you from the corner of the room, you might have already met one. Stories of dark, faceless figures date back hundreds of years. Ancient cultures described them under many names. The night hag, the dark watchers, the jinn, or the old shadow. But the modern wave of sightings began in the late 20th century, when thousands of people around the world began sharing eerily similar experiences. Often during sleep paralysis. They would wake up in bed, unable to move, unable to scream, and see a black, human-shaped figure standing in their room. Sometimes it stands in the doorway. Sometimes at the foot of the bed. Sometimes it leans inches from their face. And then it's gone. Unlike ordinary nightmares, these encounters have been documented from every continent, every culture, every religion. And yet the descriptions are almost identical. The beings are usually described as pitch-black silhouettes, darker than the night around them, with no eyes or face, just a human outline. Some appear thin and tall, others are short and stocky. And then there's one that witnesses call the Hat Man. He wears a wide-brimmed hat and a long coat, and unlike other shadows, he seems to watch, deliberately. Many who've seen him say they feel a crushing sense of dread. Not panic, not surprise, but pure, ancient fear. Scientists have tried to explain it. They say shadow people are hallucinations caused by sleep paralysis, a condition where the body wakes up before the brain fully releases it from the dream state. You're awake, but your body can't move, and your half-dreaming brain projects your fears into reality. That might explain some encounters. But not all. Because countless witnesses claim they've seen shadow people while fully awake, in hallways, on roads, in mirrors, or outside their windows. Even people who don't suffer from sleep paralysis report seeing the same dark shapes, moving fast, vanishing instantly, and always leaving behind the same feeling. As if they were being watched by something that wasn't human. Paranormal researchers have long debated what shadow people could be. Theory 1: Interdimensional beings. Some believe shadow people are entities from another plane of existence, beings caught between realities, occasionally visible to us when dimensions overlap. They appear as shadows because that's all our minds can process of their true form. Theory 2: Energy vampires. Others think they feed off human fear. They appear during moments of stress, grief, or exhaustion, drawing power from emotional energy. That would explain why victims often feel drained or depressed for days after an encounter. Theory 3: Spirits of the dead. A more traditional theory says they're lost souls, people trapped in limbo. But even ghost hunters note something different about shadow people. They don't behave like normal spirits. They rarely communicate, rarely linger. They just watch. Let's go through some chilling real-life accounts, all documented cases from witnesses who swear what they saw was no dream. A 27-year-old man named Luis Martinez reported waking at 3 a.m. to footsteps outside his bedroom door. He thought it was his roommate, until he saw a tall, dark figure walk past the doorway. He shouted, no response. Then it stopped and turned its head toward him, though it had no face. He described the figure as a walking shadow, darker than black. When he jumped up and turned on the light, it vanished into the wall. The next morning, his roommate said he'd been away all night. Luis moved out a week later. In 2001, a woman named Elka, from Munich, reported seeing the same dark silhouette 3 times over 2 months. Each time, she woke to find a tall figure wearing a hat standing near her closet. He never moved, never spoke, just stood there. When she finally screamed, the figure melted into the corner, like smoke fading into air. She told doctors she wasn't dreaming. She had no history of sleep issues. Years later, she stumbled upon online forums and realized hundreds of people described the same Hat Man in terrifying detail. In 2015, a young woman named Rena shared her story online, and it quickly went viral in Japan. She was lying in bed around 2 a.m. when she woke to a crushing weight on her chest. At first, she couldn't move. Then she saw it, a black figure crouching on her, its hands pressing down on her shoulders. It had no face, but she could hear breathing, shallow, rapid, inches from her ear. When she finally broke free and turned on the light, the room was empty. But the marks on her shoulders stayed for days. Among all shadow sightings, the Hat Man stands out, because he seems to follow people across time and distance. Witnesses who've never met describe identical details. The hat, the coat, the silence, and the feeling of evil intelligence. Some say he appears before times of tragedy or death, like a warning or omen. Others say he's a collector, a shadow that returns to certain people over and over, feeding on their fear each time. One woman in Canada said she saw the Hat Man every night for 6 months after her brother's death. Each night he stood closer. On the last night, she woke to find him inches from her bed. She screamed, and he disappeared forever. But the next morning, her house was struck by lightning. Coincidence, or connection? In 2008, a group of paranormal researchers tried something unusual. They invited people who claimed to have seen shadow people to gather in a single room, monitored by cameras, thermal sensors, and EMF detectors. For the first hour, nothing happened. Then, the temperature dropped sharply. One participant began to shake uncontrollably and said, "He's here." The cameras recorded a faint, human-shaped silhouette moving behind her, visible only in infrared. When lights were turned on, it vanished. The footage was reviewed, no one could explain it. There were no reflections, no equipment faults, and no visible source of the shadow. Even skeptics admit, the consistency of these encounters is strange. Across language, culture, and time, people describe the same beings, without ever knowing each other. Sleep paralysis might explain the fear, the immobility. But not the identical descriptions. Not the people who saw them while awake. And not the unexplained physical signs, bruises, scratches, or objects falling when the entity appears. Maybe the shadow people are real. Not spirits of the dead, but something older. Something that's always been here, just beyond the edge of our perception. After all, what is a shadow if not a shape that cannot exist without light? Maybe they live in that boundary, between waking and dreaming, living and dying, seeing and not seeing. You can lock your doors, close your curtains, and leave the lights on. But you can't escape your own shadow. And maybe, that's why they're always near. Because they're not strangers, they're reflections of what we refuse to face. So tonight, if you wake in the dark and feel that someone is watching you, don't move. Don't breathe. And whatever you do, don't look toward the corner of the room. Because you might just see a shape darker than darkness itself. And once you see it, it never forgets you. If you believe some mysteries aren't meant to be explained, subscribe to True Mystery Vault, where fear meets fact, and the unseen becomes unforgettable.